Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. We're here at a different place at a different time. Hopefully, we will not be at a different time for very much longer. We've been using Ustream.tv for years and years and years. And somewhere around February, March, we started getting emails and notifications that the Adobe Flash Player was going to be phased out by the end of the year. If you're using it, discontinue using it. Well, I did that. I use Apple products that don't really need Flash Player, but apparently Ustream did not. And sometime this past week they did. And so we were not able to be on air Sunday night at the appropriate time. I guess if I checked Ustream every minute, every day, all week long, I'd know these things, but I have other things to do. And so I didn't see it until it was time to go on air. And I'm sorry for that. We made an adjustment. We'll be going to a different website beginning next week. We're going to start broadcasting from sermonaudio.com. I'll be sending out information as to how to access that information, but for now, this is pretty much all we get this week. But there's been a lot of things that have popped up in the news this week, and one of them that struck a chord in me had to do with Helen Keller. You remember Helen Keller? Born blind, well, I guess after about 9 months or so. Does anybody remember the phrase, driving while black? Well, this was supposedly a reason for police officers to ticket black motor vehicle drivers. And I suppose in some cases it was true, but certainly not in every case. Well, now comes a kind of retribution. I'm talking about the treatment of Helen Keller at the hands of radicalized people of color. And I say radicalized because not all people of color believe and or act out the way a growing number of radicals seem to be doing today. And so here's the way it works. Born severely impaired by an undiagnosed illness that caused her to go blind, deaf, at a very early age. I think it was 9 or 19 months, something of that nature. Helen Keller managed to rise to the heights not achievable and not even worthy of achieving in the minds and the hearts of many in our country today. Despite her debilitating disabilities and a lack of resources available to her at that time, Keller would go on to become a champion of the deaf and the blind by raising millions of dollars for those who are disabled. She became a successful writer. She published 12 books. She would travel around the country raising awareness for the plight of the disabled and the fight for women's suffrage. She graduated from Radcliffe College, which is now Harvard University. She co-founded the American Civil Liberties Union. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor that an American can achieve. Despite all of her achievements and accolades against all odds, Keller was declared to be just another privileged white person. That recently in a Time magazine article. The article is entitled Co-Founding the ACLU, Fighting for Labor Rights and Other Issues. Helen Keller's accomplishments rise to the very top of what we can imagine for human beings. However, for some people of color, disability rights activists like Anita Cameron, Helen Keller is not radical at all. She's just another, despite her disabilities, privileged white person. Another example of history telling the story of privileged white Americans. Nita Cameron is a self-described, quote, fierce black autistic lesbian, end of quote, and a member of the American Disabled for Attendant Programs Today organization. Many commentators found the defaming of Keller to be outlandish. Mary Vaught, the executive director of the Senate Conservatives Fund, said, "You got to be kidding me. The woke mob is now going after Helen Keller for being white. Never mind the accomplishments she worked to achieve for those with disabilities." And here's the kicker. Helen Keller didn't even know she was white. Oh, I'm sure people told her, but it didn't matter. You see, she couldn't see the difference, literally. And neither should we. But we should take note of troublemakers, rabble-rousers, destructive individuals, people who think destroying other people's property is somehow empowering them. That a larger percentage happen to have darker skin shouldn't matter. Except, well, they make that point, not us. And then they blame the users of the world for the persecution. Meaning they go out and do things to disrupt, to destroy, to demoralize. But somehow I'm the problem because of the color of my skin. It's an amazing dynamic. On a lighter note, some of you are not going to be able to answer this question, but the question is, what were you eating in the 1940s and 1950s? I know you weren't here, but some of us were. In those days, pasta had not yet been invented. How do we survive without pasta? Well, we called it macaroni, or we called it spaghetti. Now it's pasta. Curry was a surname for human beings, not a food. Taco? Never heard of it. Oil was for lubricating. Fat was for cooking. Tea was made in a teapot using leaves and never green. Cubed sugar was regarded as posh. Chickens never had fingers in those days. None of us ever heard of yogurt. Healthy food consisted of anything edible. And the parental advice, eat it. Cooking outside was called camping. Seaweed was not a recognized food group. Kebab was not even a word, never mind a food. Sugar enjoyed good press in those days, was considered white gold. Prunes? Prunes were medicine, and you stewed them. Surprisingly, and I can't pronounce this word, muesli, M-U-E-S-L-I, was readily available. It was called cattle feed. Pineapples came in chunks, or they came round with a hole in the middle. They were found in something we called a tin, and we'd only seen pictures of the real ones. Water came from the tap. If someone suggested bottling it and charging more for it than we do for gasoline, they would have become the laughingstock of the world. There were three things we never had on our table in the 1950s. Do you know what they were? Elbows, hats, and mobile phones, whatever that was. And oh, we had a great life. A great life largely due to our parents, who were home, mostly, instead of out and doing other things. Here's a concept under the heading of things that don't matter. Something called Pornhub is now one of America's most visited websites. A recent investigation by the New York Times, Nicholas Kristof, found many videos of minors and non-consensual sexual violence. Why does that not surprise us? Well, the world has become flagrantly immoral over the last 20 years, and it's not going to stop. Do you know the reasons? A larger percentage of the world today does not know and does not care about the Bible nor about its author. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who's a Democrat in California, explained to MSNBC last Tuesday the reason why Democrats should not come to an agreement with Republicans on another COVID-19 relief package. She says it's because the GOP has been trying to invalidate the votes of millions of people. So we're going to punish them by letting them die. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi admitted it was Democrats who held up the clean COVID relief bill and are now willing to make a compromise because, well, Joe Biden has been certified to be the winner of this last presidential election. But somehow, in Feinstein's mind, it was still Trump. Speaking of Congress, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's a Democrat from New York, wants her party's leadership to call Speaker Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to step aside. The self-proclaimed socialist congresswoman said that she herself is not ready to serve as Speaker, but lamented that the Democrat Party, she called it the Democratic Party because she was educated in our public schools and doesn't know how to speak English, says they need new leadership in Congress. My opinion, I think that they get their history and their English straight, or there isn't much else that's going to matter. And we're certainly not going to trust them. Ocasio-Cortez went on to say, I do think that we need new leadership in the Democrat Party. The internal dynamics of the House has made it such that there's very little option for success. We'll have to figure out what she means by success. It's different. Do you have the Cartoon Network on in your house? The Cartoon Network has just released a comic strip that teaches children how to use gender pronouns in accordance with their chosen identity. Yeah, we get to choose if we're male or female these days. Here's to not only normalizing gender pronouns, but respecting them. Whether you use he, she, them, or something else, they say, we acknowledge and love you. Included in the caption were several cartoon images of children discussing what it means to use different gender pronouns. In one image, the text reads, gender pronouns describe a person's gender identity. Examples of pronouns are he, she, her, they, them, and something called they and zir. A lot of people are learning about gender identity. If you are comfortable, you can share your own pronouns. In another frame, a cartoon character is taught how to use pronouns by two other characters. It reads, hi, my name is Cam, K-A-M. My pronouns are they, them. Another one says, I'm Alex. Mine are they, them too. I feel seen, said another. And thanks, y'all, when people use my pronouns, I feel respected, safe, and included. Yeah, the previously uninformed character responds, your pronouns reflect you. I've learned something today. And believe you me, so have I. I have learned that nothing is real. Nothing is absolute. And science, religion, social norms, as well as reality, no longer matter. No longer matter if you are an official minority. And oh, there's another. Nothing's my fault, so I don't have to work to change. So there. We'll be right back with religious news, things you probably missed as we were going along. Stay tuned.